Namaste, viewers from all over the world. Welcome to this Global Festival of Oneness, celebrating the life and works of Adi Shankaracharya. Today, we are blessed to hear from Swami Brahmavidananda Saraswati ji on Advaita and Modernity. I will start with a few prayer and then a couple of verses. And thereafter, I will introduce Swamiji, and thereafter Swamiji will start. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Ki Jyotistava Bhanuvana Anime Ratro Pradipadikam. Syadevam Ravideepadarshanamidam Kinjyotirakhyahime Chakshustasya Nimilanadi Samaye Kindirdiyo Darshane Kintatrahamato Bhavan Paramakam Jyotisadasmi Prabhu Na Nirodho Na Chotpattir Na Baddho Na Chasadaka Na Mukshur Na Vaimukta Yesha Paramartha. Swami Brahmavidananda Saraswati ji is a traditional and contemporary teacher of Advaita Vedanta. Having lived his life as a sadhu for more than 30 years, he has facilitated growth of many students in different parts of India. Formerly a marine engineer, Swamiji as a youth was inspired by His Holiness Swami Chinmayananda ji. Swamiji studied Vedanta under His Holiness Swami Dayananda Saraswati ji in Sandipani Ashram, Mumbai during 1976 to 1978. Later, he spent 7 years at Rishikesh in the Himalayas doing advanced studies in Vedanta under various traditional teachers like Swami Tarananda Giriji and Swami Harihara Tirtha ji. Since 1985, he has been based in Mumbai, unfolding the vision of Vedanta in his regular classes. Swamiji conducts programs for private and public sector companies, including multinationals and Fortune 500 companies. His corporate programs include personal and spiritual coachings and workshops on Indian ethos in management, personal empowerment, and other HRD-related issues based on contemporary and pragmatic understanding of universal spiritual principles. Many companies are testimony to the powerful personal transformation that takes place in the people who attend these programs. Unassuming and pragmatic, Swamiji effortlessly facilitates the participants to maximize their potential in all these areas of their personal lives. Swamiji has kindly agreed to take a few questions after his discourse. Viewers are requested to type the questions in question box, and he will take those questions after the lecture is over. Over to you, Swamiji. Pranams.
The topic is a very simple one. The study of Advaita Vedanta in modern times. Now, really speaking, modern and Vedanta is not opposed to each other. Something ancient may be opposed to something modern. Maybe. But something that is eternal, timeless, is not opposed to something that is ancient or modern. As long as there is a human being, and by human being I mean someone who has got a certain degree of self-awareness and is aware of the freedom of choice. As long as such a person exists in whichever physical form, as long as such a person exists, Vedanta will be valid because the self the person is aware of is always less than what the person wants to be. Always feel a sense of lack. However much you add on or chop off, you'll always feel a sense of lack. And Vedanta is addressing this sense of lack. So how old is it? I don't know. Nobody knows for sure. We have various speculations how old it must be. But one of the invocation verses says, Sadashiva Samarambham, starting from the Lord himself, Shankaracharya Madhyamam, with Shankaracharya in the middle. Asmad Acharya Paryantam Vande Guru-Parampara. I salute the whole Guru-Parampara until my Acharya. Therefore, this is something that's eternal. All right, but we are living in certain times, which we call modern. But what really is modern? You know, when the fig leaf and the grass skirt was invented, at that time it was modern. What we generally mean is what is current. Okay. And when we say modern, we will not consider a person dressed in a dhoti kurta to be modern, or a woman dressed in a sari, though they can be very modern in their thinking. So sometimes modernity is equated with westernization. So these type of issues in terms of what is modern itself is not very clear. But we are living in certain current times. So what are the problems that as a student of Vedanta can confront? Believe me, if you really have the adhikaritvam that is mentioned in the Upanishads, Viveka, Vairagya, Shat Sampati, Mumukshutvam, and the teacher is traditional Shrotriyam Brahmavid and is aware of the current issues, there is no need to consider something like this. But rarely have I seen a student coming to Vedanta with all the qualifications. Such a student exists only in the pages of the Upanishads. Shvetaketu, Maitreyi, Gargi, Uddalaka, or Arjuna. After that, very difficult to get a student who has got all the qualifications. So we need to consider what are the issues that may be involved in our current times. And I think in today's India, especially today's India, one of the issues that are involved is we are very ambivalent to our heritage. We are not really proud of our heritage. Believe me, in all the religious representation in this country, the only Hindus are like that. And they are the major block that comes to study Vedanta. Always ambivalent to our heritage, not very proud of it. This is the result of years of colonial thinking. Our modern education system started by Macaulay, which is actually to produce clerks for the British Empire. So naturally, we had to think everything Western is great and everything Indian is useless. So there was a certain playing down and dumbing down of our heritage, which continues in many of us, especially those of us who were fortunate or unfortunate to have a modern English education in some of the convent schools. Anyone who has done that will have this issue in their minds. I'm not saying you should wear your religion on your sleeve. That's not necessary. Neither you have to be ambivalent towards it, ashamed of it, embarrassed by it. I find this is there in many of our people. Everyone will say when they come to study, Swamiji, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. What the hell does that mean? So always joke with them. What do? At the end of the day, you become literally spiritual. You go to the bar and bend your elbow. Is that what you mean, spiritual? So there is this vagueness when it comes to our heritage and our culture. So we tend to look down upon. And of course, the leftists, the pseudo-secularists, etc., have a field day in running down us. So we will see all those jokes being cracked on the movies and the social media, etc., and laugh along with that. Last few years, there has been a pushback from the Hindu community, which is good. You don't need to be fanatical, but we need to stand up for what we are. As a student of Vedanta, that becomes necessary. Now, because of this issue, okay, there are certain spin-offs which I'll come to. I don't think things like stress, time, etc., is a modern issue. In one of the Upanishads, there's the story of one of the rishis getting fire from the gods. It's an Upanishad, and the rishis got fire from the gods. So we are talking about Vedanta existing in pre-civilizational terms, prehistoric terms. Why? Because I'm sure the prehistoric person also was self-aware. He knew he had the freedom of choice. Should he go for a hunt today or tomorrow? Should he gather roots and fruits today or try something else? He had that freedom of choice. He was self-aware. I need a partner in life. I need someone to love and care. I'm not feeling fine as I am. I have a sense of life. All this, even he had. And do you think his time was not stressful? Oh my God. When you watch movies, you see hunters being successful all the time. But you know how difficult it is to hunt? Especially with your primitive weapons. A knife and a spear and a rope in hand. You're hunting. At the same time, you have to be careful that you don't become the hunted. You're following a deer and the tiger is following you. Therefore, it was stressful times. And every hunt is not successful. Average is, if you are about 20% successful, you are considered a great hunter. It is not like modern hunting, where you are sitting in one point, there's a goat tied there, and there are beaters beating the bushes so that the tiger or something will run towards you and you just shoot it with a long range rifle. Even that people find stressful. Then how will it be to hunt with a spear in hand? So stress is not a modern phenomenon. It's an ancient. It was there at that time. So that is not a modern thing. Lack of time to study Veda. Lack of time is also not a modern thing. How many things you have to do in olden times? Forget olden times. Let us take the time before the invention of electricity, 500 years. You have to chop food, gather firewood, chop wood, gather water from the well, fill up all the pots, oh my God. The chores, first you had your job to do, then you had your chores to do, then you had... Where is time? So lack of time is also not a modern problem. In fact, the women's movement owes a lot to the invention of electricity. It freed them from a lot of chores, made the chores simpler and easier. Open the tap, water is there. Why? Because of electricity, pumping stations, etc. Switch on the gas. You don't have to gather firewood. So, lack of time is also not a modern issue. But because of colonial thinking, that disrespecting of everything that is Indian and our heritage, and therefore getting a bit ambivalent towards even the Upanishads, is a modern issue that has to be taken care of by a student of Vedanta. And there is a spin-off. There are spin-offs of this. One of the spin-offs is all religions speak the same thing. They don't. They don't. You're doing a disservice to all religions when you say that. Each religion has its own message. All religions are valid forms of worship as long as you're not damaging someone else. The valid forms of worship. Whether you sit down and pray, kneel down and pray, or do whatever you want, as long as you're not damaging anybody, they are valid forms of relating with Ishvara, with Bhagavan. That I will accept. But to say all religions talk about the same thing. I saw some new course advertised on the Facebook. We are integrating all systems together in one system and going to teach it. I couldn't help laughing when I saw that. This is an integral approach. You're going to integrate existentialism with Charvakas? Kant with Shunyavada? Vedanta with Shunyavada? How are you going to integrate all that? That's not. This is all the spin-offs of this thinking that, oh, all of humanity is one. Yeah, humanity is one. But people thinking are different. What people want may be different. Everyone doesn't recognize the need for Vedanta in their lives. It's only when you are self-aware enough to recognize that the ultimate priority is a sense of fulfillment, not mere success, etc. Only then you will come to Vedanta. Therefore, this type of thinking is an issue. Modern issue that has to be taken care of. Can't avoid. You will be exposed to this. Running down of our heritage in terms of, oh, we are exploitative in nature. We exploited the lower caste. Yeah, to please our British masters, some of it did happen. I accept that. But there was not a general rule. Because the caste system has been used again to put us down, make us ashamed of our heritage. When the British came, they said there are about 18 castes in India. This is a new one. We never had a caste system. We had a Varna system. That is true, based on Guna and Karma. But what is this 18 caste? Kumbhar is a caste. Kumbhar means potter. Potter was not a caste. Even now, if you go to certain villages in North India and ask, they'll ask, "Aapki jati kya hai? What is your jati?" Those of us here who know a little bit of Sanskrit know that jati means group. It doesn't mean caste. That's a wrong translation. The jati of men and women, two separate jatis, meaning two separate groups. Jati of teachers and students, two separate groups. One jati is teachers, one jati is students. That is not a caste. But yes, all people, all kumbhars live together. They had a common area for drying the pots, etc. Therefore, they became a jati, a group, a guild. What the Britishers should have said was there were 18 guilds in India. But why should they say that when they want to exploit us? So 18 castes. Kumbhar, Mochi, Vishwakarma. Among Brahmanas also half a dozen varieties. Like this it went on. So that the shame and the denial of our own culture and heritage. I'm not saying go back to the caste system, it won't work in today's world. Some ashrama dharmas you can follow. Therefore, that is another spin-off that comes in. And the biggest spin-off of them all, many so-called Vedanta teachers fall for this. That the Veda and Vedanta is scientific. In fact, this was a topic I had suggested to Nitin before because I can go on it. This is said by those scholars and teachers who don't understand what a pramana is and what science is. There is a tyranny of science in today's world. What mistake the Christian religion did in the Middle Ages in England and Europe, science is doing that today. In the Middle Ages, in Europe and England and all those places, unless this religious hierarchy okays a scientific discovery, it cannot be published. It's not valid. It has to be in harmony with what their religion said. And today's world, we are doing the same thing with science. Unless it's scientific, it is not valid. Forgetting there are hundreds of modern discipline, not Vedanta. There are hundreds of modern discipline which does not fit into the paradigm of science, but they are still valid branches of knowledge. But there also we see an attempt to push those branches of discipline also into something called social sciences, etc., etc., etc. Psychology is not a science. It's a valid form of knowledge. Psychiatry is science, not psychology. Economics, no. But we try to make it as social sciences, try to make some mathematical model and give it because of our thinking that it has to be scientific. Vedanta definitely does not fall into that category. No way. If you understand pramana, you will understand this. We have 5 pramanas at our disposal. Perception, eyes, ears, nose, etc. Perception. Inference. Deductive logic, otherwise known as arthapatti, where from one thing you deduce another thing. Inference is simple. You see smoke and you say there is fire. Deductive logic goes one step more. It's multiple step logic. The traditional example is Devadatta doesn't put on weight. He doesn't eat throughout the day. But he doesn't lose weight either. He's not losing weight. Pino Devadatta Divana Bhunte. Hatta Gatta Devadatta. Healthy character. Does not eat during the day. And you watch him, the whole day is not eating anything. You make a deduction, a presumption, an arthapatti, that he must be nocturnal. He belongs to the category of that old Hindi song that goes about in Bombay. रात को खाओ पियो, दिन को आराम करो, Bombay से आया मेरा दोस्त. So it's a deduction, arthapatti. So we have perception, inference, deduction, comparative knowledge, upamanam, and anupalabdhi we add in Vedanta and Purvamimamsa also. How you figure out things that don't exist. It is really perception. Tarka includes it into perception, but it's not really perception. Okay. Is there a pen in your pocket? No, not there. Did you see the pen was not there? To see something, the object should be there and reflect light into my eyes. Since that is not there, the object is not there, how can it reflect light? But still I know, when I look, there is no pen in my pocket. How do I know that? I know because with pen buddhi, I look and I see nothing fitting there. With the thought of pen, I'm looking inside, I see nothing fitting. So these 5 pramanas are at my disposal. Any branch of human knowledge is a product of these 5 pramanas. Whether it's psychology, economics, science, all of them. Or how to build a fire, how to hunt, how to camp, how to build a tent. All of them is based on Pancha Pramanas. Science is heavily dependent on all of them. Without these 5 Pramanas, there is no science. And the Veda is supposed to be the 6th Pramana, Shabdam, which is supposed to give you a knowledge which this 5 cannot give you. Because remember, every Pramana is Swata Pramana, is independent by itself. What one Pramana gives you, another Pramana cannot give you. This, technically put in, if you want a definition, Sanskrit definition about it, Abhadita Anadigata Jnana Janakam Pramana. Pramanam is that which gives you a knowledge which cannot be negated in your transactional life and which is not gained by any other pramana. Important to see that. That means each pramana becomes independent by itself. So using 5 pramanas, you build up scientific knowledge. What is the Atma? What is the nature of the Atma? That is not the subject matter of science. Because the Atma, for science, minimum you need to be able to objectify it, to be able to study it, to be able to draw some conclusions, recreate that in a controlled setup, and prove it with the same everywhere. The Atma is not available for perception or any form of objectification. Therefore, there is no way you can study the Atma using 5 pramanas. There is only one Atma in the whole universe. Therefore, what is standardization, etc.? Not applicable. And Vedanta is an independent pramana by itself. It's supposed to give you knowledge that science cannot give you. So if you are trying to make Vedanta scientific, you lack the understanding of the pramana and the Shraddha that is there in pramana. You lack both. This is tradition, okay? This is not being fanatical, this is being tradition. But can we not? Doesn't science say certain things? Yeah. Like, for example, the mithyatvam of the world, for example. It's okay. quantum physics deals with something. Not really mithya, but it deals with the fact that it is changing moment to moment. There is no real matter. But for it to be mithya in Vedanta, it has to be dependent on Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahman. That part is not there in quantum physics. Cannot be there in quantum physics. Even the study of consciousness that is done in science is the consciousness manifest in your mind, not the pure consciousness that the Atma I am. That cannot be studied because it's not available for objectification. Therefore, this thinking, this is a modern thinking, that Vedanta is scientific, has to be scientific. That becomes one of the biggest stumbling block for a student to understand what Vedanta is. Can we use arguments from science to support Vedanta? Yeah, that you can do. Vedanta has always used it. Vedanta has borrowed arguments from Tarka. Vedanta has borrowed arguments from Buddhism. Vedanta can borrow arguments from modern science to support some of the statements. That's okay. That's a supporting logic. But it is not scientific. To put Vedanta as scientific means Atma is supposed to be objectified. Sorry, boys. Not possible. No generalization. There's only one Atma. It's not created there. How are you going to recreate it in a lab? So this conditioning of our human mind that Vedanta is scientific is a modern issue, because science itself is a modern discipline. It's not an ancient discipline. This is the last 200, 300 years. That's all that was there. Therefore, a lot of issues like this, lot of issues like this can be called as modern issues. Though I'm sure it existed at other times also. There was a time when Nyaya Vaisheshika presented itself as a forerunner of science, which is true. Nyaya Vaisheshika was the theoretical physics of 1500 BC or more. Theoretical physics. Yeah. Similarly, in science, there is a new thinking coming, which, though science is not the topic exactly, but the major challenge to Vedanta in today's world is coming from science. Another major thing is biocentrism. Biocentrism is that instead of physics as the basics of matter and reality, let us make it biology, because biology only can study consciousness. Therefore, there's a new discipline coming in called biocentrism. But biocentrism also, as I said before, is studying the manifested consciousness, not the pure consciousness. Not I, but what is manifest in the mind. Only that it is studying. Not one in mind, what is manifest in your brain is being studied. Because science is basically materialistic. Materialistic means it proposes the reality as material and consciousness as an evolute from that material. Now, the whole thing can be dismissed by one argument. I can go into details and nuances, but that's not my topic. To one argument. If consciousness is an evolute of matter, and according to science, there is no event without an observer, was the Big Bang an event or not an event? To say it's an event, there should have been an observer. But you're saying consciousness is an evolute of matter. Therefore, observers came later. What was there to observe the Big Bang? Science and scientists will tie themselves up into knots trying to explain this. No, we are observing in reverse, this, that, etc. It's all speculative. Is science a valid discipline of knowledge? Yes, I'm very thankful for it. Because I can adjust lighting, I can adjust my temperature, I can have a comfortable life. So I'm very grateful for science. But that doesn't mean I have to make Vedanta scientific. That is a very, very modern issue. Another thing that will trouble the modern mind is the question of money coming in. Because previously, Gurukulam never charged to teach anyone. I still don't. Okay? I run my class free of cost, though I have to pay for the hall. Okay. The hall that I take to run, I have to pay for it. Okay. In many places, some places it's free, some places I have to pay. But I don't charge anything to my students. I'm happy with the old system of Guru Dakshina. You give me what you feel like, I will manage within that. But in some modern setups, they are constrained to charge. Why? And we are all constrained to use money and have a bank account. Why? I stay in Bombay. If I go for Bhiksha here, I won't get Bhiksha. Food, clothing, all this I won't get. But people are willing to give you money. You buy what you want. So systems have changed. That doesn't make you any less traditional. Because tradition is how you teach. What I would call as a sampradaya with. If you want to study Vedanta, you really need to find a sampradaya with Guru. Now, who is a sampradaya with? This is another area of confusion in modern times. Because we are influenced by the linear thinking in West. In the Western world, the development of thought is linear. That means the later is better than the previous one. Look at it. If you are looking at a linear model, which is Western or modern as you call it, you have a problem there. Why? Because the highest is yet to come. Because the development of thought, there are various paradigms or as theses, antitheses, synthesis, you have all technical points. Okay? But the fact is it's developmental. Like science, it builds on itself, becomes better and better. So the same thinking has come into the Vedantic scholars' minds. Many of the scholars, they're great scholars, I respect their scholarship, but they need not necessarily be sampradayavits. I will make the difference in a minute. Because I heard someone say this. Because of this linear thinking, there is sampradayavit is someone who has mastered all the literature available from the Upanishads to modern times. Siddhi Granthas, like Neshkaram Siddhi, Advaita Siddhi, Brahma Siddhi, Chitsukhi, Khanna Khanna Khadya. Yeah, I'm familiar with all of them. Okay. But a scholar who knows that necessarily is not a Sampradayavit. Why do you say that? I'm sure everyone here will agree. Shankaracharya, Adi Shankara, was one of the greatest Sampradayavits available. He had not studied Chitsukhi, Khanna Khanna Khadya, Advaita Siddhi, Brahma Siddhi, all this he has not studied. So they came after him. So you mean to say he is not a Sampradayavit? Vyasa did not study the Shankara Bhashya. He is not a Sampradayavit. What about all the rishis from whom the tradition originated? The first human originators of the teaching tradition. They not studied the Brahma Sutras also. Remember, the Pramana is the Upanishads. So a Sampradayavit is one who can point out the reality to you using only words. He knows how to work the magic of his words, the magic of the words of the Upanishad, and point out the infinite reality using finite words. There is a system for this. There is a system of unfoldment for this. One who knows that is a Sampradayavit. Whether he has studied the modern texts or not. Is he an authority on the Upanishads? Yes, good enough. You know, at the risk of sounding arrogant, I will share a small story from my life. This is years ago. I was a student in Rishikesh. I had done a course with Puja Swami Dayananji. I had studied the Gita, the Upanishads, some Prakarana Granthas, and Chatusutri, Brahma Sutras with the Bhashya and all. I had studied. Then I decided I want to go to Rishikesh and study further from his guru and some other gurus there, like Harihara Tirthaji, Taranandagiri, etc. Great scholars in Vedanta those days. More than scholars, Sampradayavits. So I was in Rishikesh. Maybe I walked into this Kailas ashram where Tirthaji was teaching. I was attending the class for a month or so. When one of the Mahatmas there, senior man, said, Brahmachari, aapke prashna pushne wala ho. I said, Boliye Maharaj. I mean, when a senior monk is coming and saying, what else did you say? Remember, I was not at 30 that time, okay? This was in the late 70s, 79, 80, like that time. I don't know, okay. So he gave me a Purva-paksha. I won't go into the details, there's not enough time for that. So he gave me a Purva-paksha and I answered it. The Purva-paksha was supposed to be from Advaita Siddhi that time. And he looked at me and says, Maharaji, from Brahmachari it changed. Maharaji, aap to Advaita Siddhi pada ho kya? I said, Maharaji, nahi pada ho, lekin ichha hai padne ke liye. Pad lega. फिर यह प्रश्न के उत्तर कैसा दिया? I said, Maharaji, यह मुंडका उपनिषद में ऐसा ऐसा बताया हूँ. It has been said like this in the Mundaka Upanishad. From that I extrapolated and answered your question. आप किसके शिष्य है? Whose student are you? I said, पूज्य स्वामी दयानंद जी के. अच्छा, इसके लिए आप उत्तर दे पाया है. That's why you could answer. वो तो संप्रदायविद है. Are you getting the idea? The source is the Upanishads. Sampradayavit is one who can make the magic of the words work. Who can with just the words point out the reality, reveal the infinite through finite words. The one who can do that is a Sampradayavit. Not necessarily. He may be a scholar. In fact, most Sampradayavits have some scholarship. He may not be also. That doesn't matter. Can he make the words of the Upanishads come alive? If he can do that, he is a Sampradayavit. It doesn't matter whether he has studied Advaita Siddhi or not. I went there later to do that. Okay, I did that later. Because these are all creations by the scholarly Sampradayavits. Okay, all they were Sampradayavits and great scholars. Shankara himself was a Sampradayavit and a great scholar. So was Vyasa. They were all scholars. So is author of the Chitsukhi, Khanna Khadya, all those things. They were Sampradayavit and great scholar. How do you know the Sampradayavit? The way they've used words. That reveals. And how do you know something is worth reading? Like people come and ask, tell me, Swamiji, I found a new book on the Gita, will you read it? And tell me whether it's good or not. Now tell me, who has got the time to read every book that is published? We don't have the time for that. So I will pick up, open, na bhavo vidyate sataha, na sato vidyate bhavo. How has he explained that? Oh, he has explained that well. All right, good. Karmani eva adhikara. Idhar gadabad kiya. Work without expecting results. Dumb. Not worth it. Not worth reading. Not that many books explain na bhavo also very well. They don't. Okay, they don't. But whatever. So, this is a Sampradaya. Yeah. And some modern master said, A real guru is someone who is uneducated. Now that is also not true. Okay. This here I have developed. Okay, he must have the pramana with him. Okay, minimum the Gita, the Upanishad, and the Brahma Sutras with him he must have. Only then he can be a sampradaya with. Okay. Why am I including the Brahma Sutras into it, even though it came later? Because that analysis that was being done, very few of us can really think on those lines without studying that. That is fine. So these are some of the modern issues that confront us. Okay. And as a student of Vedanta, some of them have to be addressed. Okay. Some of them have to be addressed in our thinking, in our ways, without getting too emotional about it. Okay. With a sense of objectivity. That's why Vairagya also means to be objective to things. That's why, as I said in the beginning, if all the traditional qualifications are there in the student, then these are not an issue. But all of us have issues when we went to Vedanta. Okay? I did not go as an Uttamadhikari to study Vedanta. A lot of things developed as I was studying. And I know hundreds of students who have come after me who have become good teachers, including some of my own students. Okay? Nobody comes with all the qualifications. So some of these issues have to be handled. It's good if the teacher is contemporary enough and is aware of the modern issues. It will be easier for the student. But I have studied from Sampradayavits in Rishikesh who had no clue about science, etc. No clue. Yeah. But they were great Sampradayavits. They could make the magic work. Science, etc. I can pick up. I don't need them anyway. I have the equivalent of a master's anyway. So, in my Purva Ashrama. So, as an engineer, it's considered, an engineering degree is considered equivalent to a master's. And if I was not a Vedantin, probably I would have gone into theoretical physics or something like that. But I saw the limitations of that system. Therefore, you need to see this. No? The modern problem is think that we have all the answers. We don't have all the answers. And the most ancient wisdom that we have in the country is the highest wisdom that is there in the world with regarding to what you are. Therefore, if that respect is not, if I don't take it as sacred, it won't work. So I've spoken a lot. There is almost 10 minutes left. So if there are any questions, I will happily answer them. So, can any of the hosts present a question to me?
Thank you, Swamiji. Thank you very much for an outstanding exposition on the subject. I will take those questions. There are 3-4 questions. I will take them seriously.
Yeah.
One was, can you spell the term used by Swamiji? It is Sampradaya with. Sampradaya with. She wanted to know exact spelling. It is not Vidhi. She has written Vidhi.
Okay.
Sampradaya with.
Huh? Okay, I will explain that term.
Yeah, please. Sampradaya with.
With means one who knows.
Knows, correct.
Okay. Now, pradayam, dayam, deyam to give.
Yeah.
Pradayam to give it very clearly. Sampradayam to give it very well, completely. So these two prefixes are explaining what you're giving.
Yes.
So one who can give this vision of Vedanta very clearly is called a Sampradaya with. I have a tendency to speak fast, therefore I'm slowing down. Sampradaya with. Okay, is a word. In fact, a teacher, a real traditional teacher, is called. You know, the word tradition also is important here. Transdiction is tradition. What is passed on by word of mouth? What can be passed on by word of mouth? Only knowledge, nothing else. Yeah.
Next
I hope
question.
that explains.
It was very good. It was very nicely explained. It was explained more than what she had asked for. She had asked for only what is the exact word, but you explained the synthesis of the entire word. Thank you very much. Is Shastra not science? If not, what it is in Sanskrit? What are Jiva Shastra, Rasayan Shastra, Bhautik Shastra, Jyotish Shastra, etc.?
They are all Vedangas. Jyotisham, etc. are Vedangas. They are necessary for the Veda because you need to know the position of the stars. What is a good time to do a thing, to do a particular ritual? What is a good time for you to do a particular ritual depending upon your star? Because your birth is a snapshot of the universe. Your horoscope, if it is mine, it look like a horoscope. It is a snapshot of the universe when you are born. So they use it to predict your fate, your karma. So according to your karma, so it's a Vedanga. In Vedanta, we don't bother too much about it. We respect it because it's part of the Veda, therefore a pramana. And we take what is necessary. Like if you have to do a ritual, if you have to do some start a project, etc., we'll definitely refer to Jyotisham. That's a good thing to do. Even in your life, if you're having illness after illness, that, etc., see whether you're having some Sade Sati, Edarashani, or some Rahu or something in your horoscope. Usually you'll find something like this is there. So it's good to consult that. Similarly, other Shastras there are there. There's a whole list of them. Okay? Niruptam, Jyotisham, etymological meaning of words, all of them. So all this is necessary for the scholastic study of the Veda. For Vedanta, you don't need much of all these things. Then there are other schools of thought that came up, like Nyaya Vaisheshika, Sankhya, Buddhism, etc. 6 orthodox schools, couple of heterodox schools, they came up as a result of people's speculating on the nature of the self and reality without going into strictly accepting the whole of the Upanishad Pramana. Like if you look at Tarka will quote the Upanishad where convenient. It doesn't look at the whole Upanishad. Same thing with Sankhya. In fact, I joke, if you misunderstand Vedanta, you will get Sankhya. So also some of the traditional teachers have said that these were written by Vedantins themselves to challenge your understanding of Vedanta, to do mananam. So they are written because you can't live a Sankhyan life. What do you live as a Sankhyan life? At the most, you can do yoga. There's no Sankhyan life. There is no Tarkika life, unless you're talking about a scientific temper, but that was purely theoretical. Bauddha came about. Now, Buddha himself never claimed to be starting Buddhism. What we know as Buddhism was from books written 500 years after Buddha by Nagarjuna and Ashwagosha. These two, Buddha never claimed he was starting a separate religion. He had a group of followers, which we called as Buddhists later. But that every teacher has, like we are all, like me and many of the people who are speaking on this festival also are all from Arsha Vidya Foundation, Arsha Acharyas. But are we separate from the tradition? No, we are part of the Hindu tradition. We are part of the Sanatana Dharma. We are part of Sringeri actually. Because we are all called Saraswatis. So just because Buddha had some followers with some special marks, that didn't make it a separate religion. Like here we have Nathapanthis. We have the Dasa Sampradaya after Ramdas. We are Kabir Panthis. So all of them are not separate from Sanatana Dharma. But after Nagarjuna and Ashwagosha, we started looking at Buddhism separate. And then some of the scholars championed it because they have probably socio-political, psychological reasons for having a separate identity. Therefore, it had to be challenged and answered, which Shankara did a good job. And before him, Kumarila Bhatta did a good job.
Actually, his question is on the concept of Shastra and science. He is asking, is Shastra not a science? If not, then what it is in Sanskrit?
Shastra is a discipline of knowledge. Therefore, it's very coherent, very logical. But just because it's coherent and logical, it does not mean it is scientific. Because as I said, anything scientific involves a subject-object divide. You have to objectify that. The Atma which is dealt with in Vedanta cannot be objectified. Therefore, it cannot become scientific. Simple argument.
So something like Ghatat Drashta, Ghatat Bhinna.
Beg your pardon?
Something like Ghatat Drashta, Ghatat Bhinna, subject object.
Yeah.
Sorry. Then next question is there any way Vedanta can help protect Dharma?
See, Vedanta can, if you're someone who's protecting Dharma, okay, especially the Hindu Dharma, Sanatana Dharma, it is good to have some Vedanta exposure because it will ensure you don't become fanatical. You don't get consumed by hate. So how can you be hateful? Like I do a few things to champion Dharma. I don't hate. See, I did some stint in the armed forces. I volunteered for the armed forces some long back, Purvashram days. Okay. So if I have to deal with a terrorist, I'll shoot him down unhesitatingly. Neither the robes nor my discipline will prevent me from doing that. But I don't have to hate him. He's a misguided human being who cannot be corrected in this lifetime. Lord, you take care of him. I'm sending you up there. Let the devatas take care of him. You get the idea? So it is good to study Vedanta even for a Dharma Rakshaka because you can do it without hate, and that's important. You're not consumed by hate.
One more question. Tell us more on Shraddha as a necessity for inquiry into Atman.
Okay. Now, Shraddha very often is translated as belief, etc. I look at it differently. That's a translation and the constraint of the English language. How do I look at it? Supposing you were to ask me, do you have change for 100 rupees? I will say, I don't know because I really don't know. But let me look into my pocket. Here is my wallet. Yes, I have change. I have change for 100 rupees. Now look at it. Before I looked inside, I did not know whether I had change or not. But I was very confident that if I look, I will know. You have change? I don't know. But if I look inside, I will know. So this confidence and this trust in my eyes that when I look inside, I will know is called Shraddha. Because I don't know. Now, suppose another question, same now. Do you have $1,000 in your pocket? I don't know. Let me look. Can you see? I don't know. But I'm sure if I look, I will know. I don't. Sadhu hai, Kangal hai. What I'm trying to say is that this trust and confidence in the Shastra. Now, this doesn't come overnight. The more you study, the more your Shraddha goes because you say, yeah, this is true. This works. This is exactly what I thought about myself. Oh, yeah, this dimension I never understood before. So the more I study, the more I go into it, my Shraddha and this thing grows until when the vision is transferred with the Guru, the Shraddha itself becomes knowledge. Like how now it is knowledge that I have changed for $100. But my Shraddha, my confidence, my trust in my eyes help me gain that knowledge. So look at Shraddha like that.
One last question. What books we can read in English or simple Hindi to develop the deeper understanding of the topics which you covered?
Okay, there is this, I'm a traditionalist, okay? I will say one thing. Swatantrena Brahmanveshanam na kuryat. The story of the Shastra by yourself. Listen, find a guru. I'm telling you, gurus are all over nowadays. No, nowadays, every city has gurus. Find somebody. Or get some apata jnanam, some general knowledge by listening to videos, etc., of those you have some trust in. Some, like my videos are up. Even Advaita Academy actually first started. When they first started in, I think, 2016-17, Nitin came to me and said, can you give us some videos? We don't have anything to put up. I said, I'm giving you exclusive rights over this camp I'm taking now. I'm giving you some 15 videos on the Mahavakya. Take it, put it up. Yeah.
Super.
And he has downloaded every one of my Dakshinamurti with Manasollasa commentary and put on Advaita Academy. So like this, look for traditional things. Yeah. And you will get some apata jnana. You will not get in-depth knowledge. All this we are doing is to create awareness so that people can go and find a proper teacher and learn from him. Now Zoom will help, but it cannot replace live teaching. That my student is talking, I think on Thursday or something, on the use of technology, how it helps and hinders. My own student, who is my co-teacher now,
yes,
she's talking about that. So that will clarify it more. Yeah.
Very good, Swamiji. Very good. Sashtanga Dandavat to you for a great exposition on the subject. Sashtanga Dandavats again on behalf of all the viewers. Sashtanga Dandavat.
Yeah. Someone said, has it to be one-to-one? No, it need not be one-to-one. It can be one-to-many.